Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of our nickel hunt and fill. We got a box of nickels and we've got an album that needs some key spots filled in. We got lots of spots in the 40s and 50s, so we're hoping this box here has some older stuff that we can get into this album. Hey folks, this is James and you're watching my channel CAD Roll Hunter, and we've got another box of circulated custom wrapped rolls. I'm pretty interested to see what we get in here. We've got some of these older style wrappers that we don't see very often, and so we're hoping that there's going to be some goodies and oldies in here, but you never know because people of course reuse wrappers over and over again, so we don't know what's in there necessarily. But in our album, we need a little bit of help. We've got 69 slots filled in this album out of 117, but you can see we got a bunch of King George V slots. There's 16 in total. We don't have anything there, and I've never found a King George V nickel yet. So little did I know that that was about to change. But in the 40s and 50s, which are definitely attainable in circulated nickels, we only have 4 nickels, so we have lots of spots. Once we get into the 60s, we're doing pretty well. We've pretty much got everything in the album in the 60s except for that extra waterline in 1964 and the key date 1970. Otherwise, we're pretty good. But we're going to look for some upgraders and see if we can get this album as good as we can possibly get it. So let's get in here and see if we can fill any of these slots and move past 69 of 117. We'd like to see if we can get more of these open spots filled up. So let's get started. Okay, partway through this first roll, we've got a 1975. I don't think this is going to upgrade necessarily. Well, it's actually not too bad. It's got some dings and stuff. Some of our nickels in the 70s aren't that great, but what it does mean is that we're getting older nickel composition nickels in here, and that's always a good sign. It means that we might find some older stuff in here, of course. Roll number 3, and we're going to have our first foreign find of the box. It is an American, a 1999 out of Philadelphia. We'll add that one to the board, and we'll see how we do, because we know we can sometimes find a lot of US nickels in a Canadian nickel box. Roll number 4, and I've got a 1980. I've just put it under the scope to see if we can find any trace of the doubling on the date. There's a little bit of damage on here, but I don't see any of the doubling, so that one's just bound for the nickel jar. Roll number 5, and we've got our first 1990, and so we can put it under the scope to see if it has the bare belly. You can see pretty clearly, even just in this view, that there's a lot of fur there, but you know that's one of my favorite varieties to look for. And what we would see, of course, is because of some dye deterioration or over-polished dyes, a lot of this fur would be gone. This is the 1990 very furry belly. We're not seeing anything going on here, but that's one of the things we want to keep an eye out for. Of course, in our last video, we got a couple of them, and I'll put a link up to the top here so you can find that video. We found a bunch, and I'm always willing to find more. Same roll, and we found our oldest of the hunt so far. It's a 1968. It's not going to upgrade the one we have in the album, which is pretty good, but again, this is a good sign, hoping we find something just a little bit older. Last coin of that roll, and we found that 2017 commemorative. It's in pretty good shape here. That's commemorating 150 years of Confederation in Canada, with that really cool looking beaver on it. We'll set that aside as a good find. It's in really good shape. We like to hold those aside. They're pretty low mintage compared to our other nickels. And so, yeah, we'll set that on the board. That's another decent find with our one American. Roll number 6, and we just uncovered a find. It's going to be either a 63 or a 64. We can tell that because it's the laureate portrait, but it doesn't have the 12-sided edge. So we'll flip it. And it's a 1963, and it's in pretty decent shape, I'll have to say. Got a few little scratches on the shoulder, but in much better shape than we often see these in. That's a great one. Our first laureate portrait of the box. Roll number 8, and I think we're going to have an upgrader here. This is a 1988, and look at that. You can see it's got lots of mint luster still on it. And if I just flip it over, it's in just really great shape. So we'll put that on the board. That is very likely going to go in the binder. So we know we've got something to upgrade. We just want to see if we can find something in here that might fill a spot. And our next roll up is one of those old ones. I'm really looking to see what we find when we crack that one open. So I've opened up that first roll, and it wasn't a whole bunch of King George the Sixths like I was hoping it might be. You can see we got a 2015 right off the bat, and this looks like something from the 80s and 84. So we're not going to find a bunch of old ones, but there still could be something interesting in this roll. You never know. Roll number 10, we're at least going to have one find because I can see a 12-sided edge there. And then there's this dark one here. I don't know if it's something older or just something dirty, but we'll find out in just a second. We'll start with that dirty edge and see that it's just a pretty dirty 1984. Looks like it's fire damaged or something. But we can see our older nickel here is another laureate portrait. This one is a 1961 to add to the board. And just a little further back, I can see we got our second American. This time it's a 1995 Philadelphia. And in the same roll, we just found ourselves a 2000P. It's a lower mintage semi-key date. We'll check to see if, I know we have it in the album, but we'll check to see if this might upgrade because this one looks pretty nice. In roll number 11, and we've got another American, but this one's an older one. It's a 1963, and it looks to be in really great shape. Flip it over there, and it is a Denver. This might be something from my collection. That was a pretty good looking 1960s Jefferson nickel right there. Another one for the board. Next roll number 12 and another US. It's a 92 Philadelphia. Same roll, and we've got what looks to be a 90s one with almost like a matte finish. It's very strange. The reverse looks normal. It's a 1998. It actually is in really good condition. It looks like it's got some like fingerprints or things on it. But it's actually in very good shape. So we'll check that against the album for sure. Roll number 15, we got a 1979. It's got a little bit of damage, some ring of death a little bit on it, and a couple scratches, but it's in otherwise good shape. And I think some of our late 70s might not be that great. So we'll check that one against the album too. Roll number 17, and I've got a few that could very well be upgraders. Some shiny 80s. This 86 looks really good. And then right behind it, a very shiny 87, and another really nice looking 86. And so we'll hold these aside. They look like these could potentially be upgraders. So some really nice ones. And there's some other ones that I thought looked like some 80s or 90s edges in here. So there might be more. I found a few more since, but a little further back, this really gorgeous 1984. And so we might be able to fill up or upgrade some of those 80 slots. I looked at them earlier. They didn't look great, but we found some gems in here. And just a couple back in 1985. So we're finding some really lovely ones here. Next roll number 18, and we're finding more of those. Here's an 87 that looks great. And I can see behind this 04, another 87. Same kind of wrapper as the last one. And again, this one's got some toning or something, but it's still like a really nice coin. So, but interestingly, in this roll was also 2021. So they're mixed in, but somebody might have just been emptying like a collection, or I'm not sure, in with other change. Just opened up roll number 20, and we're going to have an interesting foreign find. This is a 1975 Commonwealth of the Bahamas. 5 cents. I don't think I've had this one before. It looks like it's in pretty decent shape for a 1975. A little dirty, or a little toned. And right behind that, we got a nice 1972, circulated, and it's got some scratches. It probably won't upgrade, but it's another nickel for the nickel cup. And just a few coins back in the same roll in 1964, we've got ourselves another laureate portrait here. Looks to be in pretty decent shape. And there is our Queen Elizabeth. And I see we've got an American coin just a few back, so we may as well take a look. It's a newer design. It is what have we got? A 2016 Denver. Roll number 22, and we've got another 60s Jefferson nickel. It is a 1961 out of Denver. Roll 24, and we've got another 1964. There we go. Roll 31, and I'm bringing you in because I found a really nice looking Elizabeth. I haven't flipped it over to see what the date is, but it's a 1977, the low 7 variety. You can see that the 7 on the right is lower than the 7 on the left. So that could possibly be an upgrader for sure. We'll take a look. Same roll, and we've got our third laureate portrait from 1964. And of course, we should be checking all of our 64s for the extra waterline variant. We don't have it in the album, and I've never found one. So I'm going to throw it under the scope, and we'll take a peek. So there's our 64, and here is where we would see that die crack that looks like an extra water line from the log here by the designer's initials and to the rim. We don't have it here, and I checked the other two that we've gotten, and we didn't get it there either. We are in roll 33, and we have just found something in here. It is incredible, something I have never found before. I just sort of was going through, and I stopped because I saw this laureate portrait, but my eye went to the back, and we are going to have a King George V nickel. I have never found one until just now. A 1929. You can see it's been heavily cleaned. It's got some marks on it. But look at that. That is just incredible. My first ever George V coin of any denomination. It's really unfortunate that it's been so heavily cleaned on the reverse. I think that's what's happened. There seem to be some scratches because it's actually in better than decent shape. This is in an F or a VF. Let's just throw it under the scope. And what we're looking at is the band of the crown has a lot of detail. You can still see the jewels that are in there. It's complete. We'll flip it over to the other side. Maybe it doesn't show scratches on here, but it is definitely a 1929. And just to the naked eye, I thought it was, I think it's got some scratches. I can see them there. Otherwise, I was going to say it might just be some toning, but this is absolutely phenomenal. And this is going to fill a spot in our album. This is super fantastic. It's going on the board as a 1929, our first King George V find. And we're just going to look in here and see what this one is. It's another 1964, and we'll look at that one too to see if it is the extra water line. That would have been pretty crazy if it was, but it is not. I pulled our 1929 up onto the screen because there are a couple of variations of this. There is a near S and a far S, and it really just is determined by how close the S is to the rim. And I think this one is the far S. There's about the same width here of the S to the rim, and I think the near S would be much closer to the rim. So we have found ourselves one of the two varieties. Of course, we would have to, but it's just still incredible that we got a King George V nickel in a box of customer wrap nickels. I'm just hoping that there might be another one in there. Roll number 35, and I've got a 1965 up here. And what we always want to check on the 65s is if it's the large bead or the small bead. And what we're doing is looking between the two eyes here. If there is a bead right in the middle, it's the very rare large bead variety. This is not it. This is the small bead. It isn't in great shape, so it is bound for the nickel jar, but that's what you want to look for to determine the large bead or the small bead. Roll 37, and we got yet another 1964 laureate portrait. Again, another one that looks like it's in pretty decent condition. And there we can see the obverse there. And even with the naked eye, we can see that this one does not have the extra water line. I think we're actually in roll 37 now. A couple had fallen down in the box and I didn't see them. But we've got a really nice looking 1994. This might upgrade our 94 in the album. You can see it's still got a fair amount of mint luster on it. Looks pretty shiny, and so I'll put that over with the rest of the finds, and we'll have a peek and compare to the album when we do our wrap-up. Roll number 44, I'm bringing you in. We've got another American nickel, but this time it is our first 1950s Jefferson nickel, 1959, and this one has a Denver mint mark. So our oldest American of the hunt. This is actually probably our 24th, I think, of the hunt. I haven't showed you all of them. Maybe our 25th. But this is now by far the oldest, our first 50s Jefferson nickel in the hunt. Same roll, and I got a 1990 under the scope, but it is not the bare belly. Roll 49, we are getting to the end, but we've got another laureate portrait here, and this time it is a 1963. Well, you know what they say, all good things come to an end, and that's what's happened with this box. We have finished the hunt, but we found a lot of goodies. This was actually a really, really great hunt, so I'm going to come back with a wrap up in just a sec. All right, I've got all of the finds laid out. That was a pretty great hunt. We know for sure we filled at least one spot, but I think we're going to have a bunch of upgraders. So let's go through and see what we got. We did pretty good in our nickel cup. For foreign finds, we got 30 US nickels, including this really nice 1963 Denver and this 1959 Denver 50s Jefferson nickel. That's great. And of course, we got this Bahamas 1975 5 cents. I've never found that before. And it's got the pineapple on the other side. Of our Canadian finds, we've got a few we're going to check against the album in the 90s. This 94, 95, 98, and 99. I'm not sure. I grabbed a couple really nice 2017s. And of course, we found this 2000p low mintage. We also found a whole string of really nice finds in the 80s, starting like from 82. We got 83. We got some 84s, 86, 85, 87s, a whole bunch of 87s, 88s, and 89s. Our 80s in the album aren't great. These are there's probably an upgrader for each year here, so I'll confirm that in a moment. We found some in the 60s and 70s we're going to look at too to see if they upgrade. That 68, 75, 76, the 77 low 7 was really nice. That 1979, just not sure. We've got some nicer ones, but I believe a lot of our 70s aren't great. In terms of our laureate portrait finds, we got a 61, two 63s, and we got 5 1964s, including this nice one on the top, none of which were the extra waterline. But of course, our absolute best find of the day was this 1929 King George V nickel. I've never found one before until just today, so this is super fantastic. I'm really, really stoked. Actually, a lot of detail on this when you look at the band of the crown, so really happy about that. You can tell that somebody's tried to clean it. I can see some scratch marks on the reverse, and some, if I look in certain lights, on the obverse too. It was obviously some toning on this coin, but that is a fantastic find for the binder, or for the album. So we'll go and take a look and see what upgrades, and I'll let you know. Okay, well, I've gone through everything that we got, and we only filled one slot today, but it was really significant. It was that 1929 King George V nickel. Super fantastic. That was a great addition. On top of that, we actually upgraded 6 additional nickels. Back from the 70s, we did this 70 low 7 we upgraded. We upgraded the 82, the 84, the 86, and the 88. As we had thought, we actually, and as well, the 76. So we did definitely get some great upgrades to the album in some of the years where our finds hadn't been great up until now. So as it stands, we have 70 now slots filled. We'll get a good look at the obverse of that King George V. You can see it's been cleaned. But that brings us up to 70 of 117 slots on this album. We still have lots of space. Of course, if we get any more King George V, that would be awesome. But we could still fill a lot of these 40s and 50s with King George VI and Queen Elizabeth. We know they're definitely out there. We just haven't had them yet. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please consider subscribing to see when I'm putting more videos out. I put out videos all the time. Hit the like button, absolutely. And definitely come again and check us out. CAD Roll Hunter here. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day.